The year was 2001. It was the era where 3D collect-a-thon platformers were everywhere, and games like Super Mario 64, Banjo-Kazooie, and Crash Bandicoot topped the list. But just a year prior, collect-a-thons entered the next generation of console gaming when the PlayStation 2 came out, and everything could be bigger, more complex, and... well, I basically missed all of it because I didn't have a PS2. That's right, up until a couple of weeks ago, I had no experience with the Jak and Daxter franchise. I mean, I knew it was really popular, but I didn't even grow up with friends who talked about the series because most of us played Nintendo. Don't worry, you're still my favorite. But because I now have a PS4, I've been trying to catch up on a lot of those PlayStation goodies I missed over the years, especially since so many of them are getting re-released and remastered. And on top of that, 2017 has been a big year for reviving this genre with games like Yooka-Laylee, A Hat in Time, and Super Mario Odyssey. So now seemed as good a time as any to look back at a game that tried to push the boundaries of the 3D platformer collect-a-thon genre and to see if it still holds up today. So as many of you know, when the PlayStation 2 came onto the scene, developer Naughty Dog decided not to continue their acclaimed Crash Bandicoot series, and instead decided to focus on a new series that would better suit the PS2's improved hardware. The game they created was Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, and it released in December of 2001 to critical acclaim and has since sold millions of copies. It was successful enough for Naughty Dog to develop 2 official sequels, because I was told we don't talk about this one. And it cemented itself as one of the best series developed for the PlayStation 2. Now, Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, was far from being the first 3D platformer collect-a-thon, and at first glance, it might not seem that revolutionary to the genre. Naughty Dog did build it around pre-existing conventions established by groundbreaking games like Super Mario 64. But Jak and Daxter isn't so much the defining title of a genre, but rather an important link in gaming evolution. It introduced some things that future games built upon, and in turn, its effects can still be felt in the gaming world today. Now, the story of Jak and Daxter is pretty simple. It follows a silent protagonist named Jak as he works to help his friend Daxter regain his true form after he's turned into an Ottsel by falling into a pool of dark eco. It later builds into that save the world storyline that's common in video games, and you'll travel to lots of different areas and meet lots of quirky characters along the way. From the moment you boot up the game, you can see that the world of Jak and Daxter is bright, colorful, and full of personality, and every part of the game complements this tone. Naughty Dog has always been a game company that takes pride in details, cohesive design, and also pushing the limits of cinematic storytelling. While the general plot of the game is pretty basic, the characters in this game are just as unique and memorable as the world. While they all have original designs and look quite different from one another, although the models are certainly starting to look dated, they are also very expressive in their animations, with each character having their own quirks, and they also feature full voice acting. While a lot of games from this era hired either really flat or overly cheesy voice actors, Naughty Dog avoided this pitfall by hiring a solid voice cast, many of whom had worked on popular cartoons and animated movies from the 90s and 2000s. Everything about the presentation of this game has polish, and feels like it comes from a legit cartoon. The 6th console generation was really when game developers started to put more emphasis on storytelling through acting rather than just through text boxes, which required more attention to the details in order to not hurt the player's experience. Jak and Daxter was one of the first games of that generation, which helped set the bar for cinematic storytelling and helped cement Naughty Dog as the company that excelled at it, as proved by their later projects Uncharted and The Last of Us. The one downside to Naughty Dog wanting to show off its cinematic approach, which was also a problem that was pretty rampant in the PS2 era, is that cutscenes are not skippable. And because every side character is fully voice acted, anytime you talk to anyone, it's considered a cutscene. And so you're going to have to sit there and listen to some 2-minute spiel about who they are and why they got there and why they need your help. And while I like the quirkiness of the cast, a lot of these talks could be greatly shortened. Also, the only character I was not a fan of was Daxter himself. He was that loud, kind of rude sidekick that was really popular at this time. And every time I died, Daxter made sure he got one last line in just to show how selfish and annoying he really was.
Don't worry, I'll avenge you! What?
Like, why are he and Jak even friends? Like, yes, I know there's some character development for him towards the end, but like, goodness, Jak, you need need to speak up and stand up for yourself. Oh boy, these next two games are going to be good. But while the presentation in Jak and Daxter was good for the time, what really made this game stand out when it was released, and what's still a bit mind-blowing today, is its world building. Jak features all those good collect-a-thon worlds you expect from this era: snowy mountains, lava caves, a spooky part, beach, swamp, forest, you name it, you got it. But while games like Super Mario 64 established the norm of 3D platformers having a centralized hub world that branched into themed levels that could be loaded through paintings or doors or portals, Jak said, hey, that's nice and all, but I got something better, and then built a pseudo-open world with the game. Every themed level flows into another one, and the world slowly unravels the deeper you travel in, and you can complete a lot of the game out of order if you wish. And what's really surprising is that it features no loading screens or quick dips to black as you enter the next area. I legitimately didn't even know we could do this in 2001. Now, there are little tricks the game uses to help load the next area without you knowing, and there are bottleneck points where you can enter and leave each area, but there were plenty of times while I was playing that I didn't even realize I had entered the next area until I brought up the menu screen and saw it displayed a different name, because everything just flowed so well. My adventure never felt interrupted, and it encouraged me to keep playing and exploring, because I always felt like I was stumbling across something new when I walked around a corner or jumped up some platforms. Now, what's interesting is that Jak's world-building formula never really caught on in the 3D platformer collect-a-thon genre. Even today, most of these games continue the trend of the centralized hub world or even just a level select. But that doesn't mean the flow that Jak and Daxter developed had little impact on the gaming landscape. Rather, it was one of the games that helped to establish the open-world exploration genre that everybody wants to make and play nowadays. I mean, think about it. The whole world is connected and flows through different landscapes and climates as you run through the world uninhibited. There's side missions and fetch quests. You're encouraged to explore every nook and cranny at your own time and place, to go off the beaten path and to do things in the order you discover them and not in the order you unlock them. It's open world at a very basic stage, but I can see the impact it left by playing the game for the first time 16 years later. Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy also puts emphasis on simplifying its gameplay design in a time where other 3D platformers were trying to make things more complex. There are only 3 primary collectibles in each world. 1. Precursor orbs, which are everywhere and act like coins or musical notes. 2. Scout flies, of which there are 7 in each level that need to be freed from crates. And 3. Power cells, the primary collectible that allows you to push on in your adventure. While this is more in line with something like Super Mario 64, which came out in 1996, other collect-a-thon games of this time, from the late 90s and early 2000s, adopted the mentality that more is better, and were sometimes overwhelming with the number of things you had to collect and keep track of. To also promote the flow of the world, you're not kicked out of a level anytime you collect a power cell, as you were when you got a star in Super Mario 64. But there's also not a lot of forced backtracking within a level to pad it, as some games like Donkey Kong 64 and Banjo-Tooie did. Because Jak and Daxter is more simplistic in game design and doesn't bog you down with leveling up or having you unlock tons of power-ups, it puts more of its emphasis on, well, as the phrase goes, the get good. The first Jak and Daxter isn't a difficult game, but it puts emphasis on learning and mastering a level in order to be more efficient. It wants you to learn the inner workings of every world and to use its landscape and Jak's moveset to your advantage. Most of this is learned through trial and error, but without feeling punishing. The first time you die in a level, you might think, wait, it brought me all the way back here? And then you discover that the checkpoint you were last at 10 minutes ago is actually just 30 seconds around the corner from where you died. You learn shortcuts and realize how much the world is built together. By the time you have everything collected, you feel like you have an area mastered, which provides a great sense of accomplishment. Bosses and minigames work in the same way too. If you don't beat a boss the first try, you slowly become more aware of that boss's patterns that will help you succeed. For example, in this fight, I had a hard time telling which direction the rocks were going to be thrown until it was too late. Then I discovered that the shadow on the lava makes it really easy to tell at a much earlier time so that I could react. I also have one more quick story to further illustrate this point about efficiency. So I had no idea about the glitch that if you fail the race in the Precursor Basin and then you go back and talk to the gambler before winning, it will set the time to beat as 0.01 seconds and it will be impossible to complete. And when I found out that would keep me from being able to 100% complete the game, I definitely got frustrated. I mean, I was already 59% done with the game, and I'd spent quite a bit of time on it. But I still decided to start another game file from scratch in order to do things right. And even with all the long cutscene conversations I had to sit through again, I was back at 59% completion in just about 3 hours. Because I had to learn every square inch in a level and had refined my platforming skills from my first playthrough, I was able to take way more advantage of my moveset and the landscape to move more efficiently. Also, let's just be grateful that we live in a day where we can now patch bugs like this so they don't cause problems for us anymore. I mean, like, goodness, Naughty Dog! But Jak and Daxter also has plenty of variety. Not only do the levels feel different from one another, but there are unique challenges in each. Besides the times when you're collecting the 7 scout flies or giving people precursor orbs in order to get a power cell, you really won't be doing the same things multiple times. Sometimes you have to win a race on a machine, or defeat a boss, or find a secret entrance, or push an egg off of a cliff. The menu also works well to help you keep track of everything you still need to do in each world, so you won't ever feel completely lost. Jak and Daxter is not a perfect game, and a lot of its shortcomings while playing it in 2017 can be attributed to the era it was made in. Its camera is a bit wonky, sometimes your double jump doesn't work right, cutscenes are unskippable, and there is that one glitch. But there is a lot that this game does right, and it's absolutely an experience worth playing even this many years after its release. I had a smile on my face most of the time I played it. It was so charming and nostalgic, even though it was a game I'd never played before, and it can be described as just pure fun. And that's what a game should be, fun! Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy is a really solid 3D platformer, and it excels alone at that. But its real legacy rests in how it impacted gaming as a whole, through its cinematic storytelling, open-world design, variety of gameplay, and its focus on efficiency over complexity. And game developers built upon these aspects to make the games that we play nowadays. So now I want to hear from you. What's your opinion of the original Jak and Daxter game? Is it one of your childhood favorites, or is it one that isn't really quite your style? Let us all know below in the comments. Thanks for watching, and hope you have a lovely day.